You can do any kind of podcast processing just in seconds in Audacity. To achieve that, you have to use a tool I have developed, or you have to build yourself such a tool. It can be used on solo podcasts, co-hosts, or interview podcasts. It can be used regardless of whether you add music or not. Let me show you how to do that in all these scenarios. You will get this folder from me with 3 files. You have to import these 3 files, and you are ready to process your podcast in seconds. I will show you the import process later. First, let me show you how to process a multi-people podcast. I have 3 speakers in this podcast. The audio level is not ideal, and 3 speakers talked in a slightly different volume or loudness. Let's listen a bit.
Perfectly stated, and auditions is what we are all about here.
Definitely. So for this project, there's some specifics there that.
Absolutely. You should pay attention to that direction, especially from the client. But quite often the clients.
You see, it would need some processing to make this podcast ideal to share. You can process each talking track individually or all at once. To process a voice track, select it and go to Tools. From Apply Macro, you have 2 choices. You can either choose Podcast Regular Improve or Podcast Extreme Improve. In most cases, Podcast Regular Improve will do. But if you have a guest or speaker talking too loudly or too softly or both, then Extreme Improve Macro will work better. I will apply Regular Improve for this track. I can apply this macro to all the voice tracks one by one. One-by-one processing can be useful if some tracks need regular improvement and some tracks need extreme improvement. For this current podcast, all my tracks need regular improvement. I will undo the changes I done on the individual tracks and will process all the tracks at once. So I will select all the tracks by Command A or Control A and go to Tools. I will select Podcast Regular Improve. You can see the loudness level of all the tracks is fixed in seconds. This podcast is now quite ready to finalize. If we listen to it, you will see volume levels of all the speakers are now perfect.
There's cool quality to the way they communicate and the way they sound, like they're speaking with a smile and excited and happy about the product that they're walking you through.
Tommy, having heard that artistic direction and that job detail, you have an idea of that you think would be successful in this sort of situation?
Absolutely. You should pay attention to that direction, especially from the client.
We need to merge all these tracks to one track, and that track needs to be mastered in the right way for a podcast. Podcast hosts has a certain requirements of the submitted audio. This last step will ensure the final audio meets such requirements. So after the processing of voice tracks, I will go to Tools, Apply Macro again. This time, track selection is not important. When you finalize, all the tracks are automatically selected by the macro. So if you added a music intro and outro, it will be finalized with these voice tracks. I will show that in a moment. Now this podcast is ready to share. I can export it as an audio file and share it on any podcast hosting platform. Because it has been processed and mastered following the podcasting platform's requirements. Let's now see how to process a solo podcast without music and with music. This is a solo podcast, and the process is the same. I will first apply either the regular improve or extreme improve. In this recording, the speaker sometimes talked too softly. So I would use extreme improve for this one. The next step will be finalize, even though I have only one track. Because the first macro was used for processing the track. The finalize macro will master the track to meet podcast hosting requirements. The processing is the same if I have a music track. For example, here I have a music track and a speaker track. I already aligned it in the timeline. However, the voice has not been processed yet. I could have processed the voice first and then aligned the music, but it does not matter. I will process the voice first using the podcast Extreme Improve and then I will finalize. It is now ready with the intro music.
Oh my gosh, I could give you so many of my examples, but let's take a couple that maybe more people can relate.
I will finalize it now, and you will see the music remain the same way. I have one track now with the music included.
Oh my gosh, I could give you so many of my examples, but let's take a couple that maybe more people can relate.
I can export it now and upload it to the podcast platform. So, how do you get these macros? You can get this from this Buy Me a Coffee page. Using these macros, my clients are already processing their audio. If you learn to use these macros, you will save some money from expensive online subscriptions. To install a macro, go to Tools, Macro Manager. You have to import the TXT files you get from me. Select a TXT file and open. You have to do these for all 3 files. Then you will see it will appear on the Apply Macro menu and you are ready to use it. You will get after-sales support from me. So if you have any questions or issues, please email me. I will help you to get up and running with these macros if needed.